What's up? This is Thank You, Mr. Beast. Me and David do this, which is basically Thank You, Mr. Beast is how can we be self-employed in a way that feels good to us. But it's not even self-employed. It's how can we do work that feels aligned and good to us. We're basically just going to be trading peer coaching sessions, and I was like, why don't I record it and upload it to YouTube? So if people want to learn about me, they can. And if people want my vibes for free, they can have them. And if people want to give me aligned work, they can do it. Beautiful. I'm going to ignore you, silly boy or silly girl, until for the rest of this. And we're just going to interact. If you have any questions, let me know. Just raise your hand. And anything else. Cool. But yeah, I think we can just basically ignore this. And let me I'm even gonna. No, I'll leave. I'll leave our metacognition in there. I'll scoot in a little bit. How's this? All right, bang. Do you want to do 30-30 or do you want to do however long it takes?
I don't have anything.
Me neither. All right, cool.
So let's like default to 30-30. Do you want to set a timer for 30 and then we can call it?
Kind of like no timer right now. Cool. All right. I had a good conversation with Harley. It was basically like, to be clear, I'm receiving first, right? Cool. I had a good conversation with Harley. That was like, kind of like, oh, today's a big update for me, and like, oh, I don't need to do coaching. Like, I could also just be, if I'm working at a summer camp for adults, that's fucking sick. Because like the actual goal is meta-modern culture. The actual goal is culture that invites all parts of someone in and all of their inner depth and being part of that culture and community. The real goal is being a mammal in abundance, which means being with physical other people. I also feel how much of a better coach I am in person. And like that seems like a way better way to build skills as well. And then there's just like the actual conflict of being in a community. So a bunch of that is, I found this camp, summer camp for adults called Sleep Awake this morning. And I'm just really excited about that. Where I also have Spark. For them, Spark is another summer camp for adults basically.
No, they don't exist.
They don't exist.
No context.
They don't exist. But for Spark, I was like, I could just probably start working for Spark again. Like if let's say I had no money, I could probably work for Spark and have that like pay for my expenses. The only thing about Spark is I think it's actually just, Sleep Awake seems like it has better meta-modern culture than Spark to me. But there's also that place we were thinking of going in Spain maybe? Like the Liminal
Village.
Liminal Village,
yeah.
Which again doesn't seem like fantastic, but seems pretty good. So like, I guess now I'm in this like expansive state that's like, which is actually such a massive change. I also got this out of the money mastermind I'm running, which a common theme for everyone, but something they also asked me was just like, how can you do what you want? You're assuming you can't do what you want through a job. Like, how could a job actually be in deeper service of what you want?
Was the assumption basically like I have to like have this income thing, and then I can do what I want, and they have to sort of like coexist?
I'm guessing. I would guess that's also there, but it's more like, it's more like there's not going to be any job where that's as efficient for my emotional work, for my my emotional development, for my emotional and spiritual development, as me being a coach independently.
Oh.
That's the
That's
assumption.
extremely specific. Yeah.
And it's like
And that was shared. Or are you talking about
the
you?
general version would be like, there's no job as good for my growth as being independent.
Yeah.
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 And it's like, wait, there's probably like hundreds of jobs that are better for my emotional spiritual development and that are more exciting to me than what I'm doing than like being an independent coach online.
It's pretty interesting.
Which like there's like there's not that many summer camps for adults, but like any role where I'm in a somewhat coaching or facilitator role or just camp counselor role at a summer camp for adults, 100%. Like I'm so fucking excited about that. Like that is the end goal. And the other piece of it, which is similar, is like, wait, the end goal is jamming with my friends on inner work, inner depth, coaching, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's jamming on that stuff with my friends in person. And so it's like, okay, how can I do that tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Like, how can I do that? Like, how can I do that as soon as possible? Mm-hmm. How can the path also be the goal?
Yeah.
Which is boom, what we're doing. Bang.
Bam.
Easy.
Oh my God.
Let's fucking go.
We live in paradise right now.
Crazy. Mammals in abundance. Look at this fucking yogurt.
Mammals in abundance. MIA, boys.
MIA. MIA. Mammals in abundance. So it's basically just like, it's not how do I look for jobs like that. It's just how do I try even less hard?
Yeah. And
trust myself even more, because now I see the clarity of why it makes sense that I don't have to try, which is like, and there's another one said to Harley that I like, which is like, oh, if I run out of money, I'm literally just gonna apply for a bunch of jobs to be an adult summer camp counselor and have them pay me. Like, I'm just going to create my dream role at a bunch of these organizations. I'm gonna be like, sleep awake. I have no money. I would love to do this for you if you paid me $0 or like $5,000. And like, Spark, I have no money. Just like pay for my room and board, and I'd love to do this for you. Or like, Joe Hudson, Art of Accomplishment, I have no money. Like, I would love to do this for you in exchange for my living expenses.
Yeah.
And there's Liminal Village isn't as good as those, but also Liminal Village. It's like
that kind of is like explicitly their deal though. Is like they're all about like whatever they call it, like the new economy. So
mm-hmm.
they're like you can pay us money if you want, but like mm-hmm. we're also super open to like not that. So
yeah.
Probably, but maybe not like as good of a fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just like that's gonna work out.
Checkmate, capitalists.
Yeah, exactly.
So it kind of sounds like the angle is like, I lost my train of thought. It'll come back. Keep going.
So another one from that Rob asked me that I liked in the mastermind was like, I was like, oh, which is part of why we're recording this. Like, oh, I want to flesh out my middle of the funnel.
Yeah.
Like, people don't really have a good option to trust me enough to coach with me. And it's kind of like, dude, what if you just like had fun with your friends instead of like fleshing out the middle of your funnel?
Right.
And part of why I say that is like, what if instead of trying to get better at coaching, I had more fun?
Yeah.
Which feels like a crazy thing to say. And so it's like, what if instead of trying to get better at coaching, I went to more summer camps for adults?
Yeah, I know what I was gonna say. It sounds like the angle is like if I want, and like I think it's about more than just business, but we can like if we're focusing on business, like if I want a joyful business, I have to accomplish X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, actually, if you want a joyful business, you just have to do what brings you joy.
Yeah.
Starting like immediately.
Yeah, starting immediately, which is crazy. It's just enjoy over manage over and over. And there's a little part of my brain that's like, oh, you should manage this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, that would be such a good thing to manage. And it's like, wait, that doesn't work, right? It's like, oh, I made this amazing application for Andy Matuszyk's research fellowship. Like, it's beautiful, but it's on my old website and I haven't created the new version. A little managing part's like, oh, I should just like create the new version of that and put it on my website. But like, the place I would do that from is like managing and not joy. And if I let go of managing, at some point I'll apply for something that I'm really excited about and naturally want to redo that.
Yeah.
And naturally want to put it on my website. But just like, ooh, like, so yeah, it's basically enjoy over manage.
Yeah.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I'm just vibing.
Nice. TLDR, we're vibing.
Cause like, yeah, this is oh man. Question the assumptions. I just feel like I see it at this point, which is like, okay, if I run out of money, I'm more likely to design my dream jobs at different places. And like, yeah. So
And is that a hypothetical, or is that like you're actually worried about it?
say it again.
Is that because you said it twice now, so I'm just wondering, is that a hypothetical running out of money, or is that like, oh, like this might actually happen, so I'm sort of like,
I think I have like $20,000, and I probably make like $1,000 a month coaching right now.
yeah.
So that means if nothing changes, and that obviously nothing will change. If nothing changes, then I'd run out of money, and so by default it'd be like 5 months, but then I'll have 5,000. So it'd be like 6 months. And I just like, dude, again, like 6 months is October. Like, who the fuck knows what's gonna be going on in October? There, like, AI killed everyone. Like,
Oh man.
AI killed everyone. There's another pandemic.
Oh man.
This building collapsed from an earthquake.
Surely no good things will happen.
We're in the post-capitalist economy and no one has to work anymore. I hope. No, that's not true. I hope at least one of those. No, I only hope the last one happens, and then I can say I called it on this video.
Yeah. You can get married and move to Africa.
Bro,
Nobody knows.
I might have a child.
In 6 months.
In 6 months. We
Nobody
adopted.
knows.
We adopted. We said I can't wait. Amazon Prime babies. So yeah, we're basically vibing.
Interesting.
I guess it's just like, I guess it's just fear of letting go that hard.
Letting go of what?
Letting go of managing outcomes
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a nice metaphor yesterday. I don't think you were there for it. Which is like, you're hanging on the edge of a dock. You're hanging on the edge of a dock, and you're like, can't see me, yeah, come. You're hanging on the edge of a dock in the ocean, and you can like lean back to float on your back. And you like start leaning back and trusting it, and then you like get the sensation of falling, and you're like, ugh! Holy shit. Kind of like that. Yeah. I feel my brain wanting something. I feel my brain still being grabby. It's like kind of right here. And it's like half like, dude, there's nothing to grab anymore. And it's half like, ooh, I kind of want to grab something. But it's kind of like, what's wrong attention to and like, right? Kind of what I'm saying is like, we're chilling. And it's like, okay, we're chilling, so like, what's the next problem?
Right.
And I do feel like the way to solve that is like gratitude. So we could just rip some gratitude. But it's also like, feels a little bit more appropriate to like sit in the discomfort. Any thoughts?
Sounds pretty nice. So like in terms of like, well maybe, I don't know, maybe if we're chilling there are no action items. But I'm curious like, is your intention like, I guess your intention is to like see how you feel in general. But like, do you feel like actually applying the summer camp? Like on some kind of like soonish timeline or like?
I think mostly the frame doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
And kind of like the first thing you said, like, if we're just vibing, there's no action items.
So it's kind of like there is a summer camp. I am excited about it.
It's kind of, it's more like, what's it like to trust myself so much that I don't feel the need to think about that right now? I was a little bit defensive, but
no, it is fair though. I think it's like, I could think about the future, but then I would immediately not be vibing it.
yeah, because we're mammals in abundance right now. I just had some yogurt. So it's like, well, it's like, it's like there's nothing to figure out. But that's why, like, hey yo, that's like why the self-discovery framing, like one thing I thought we were gonna talk about today is niching, but niching just feels like way too small. Feels like there's a lot of assumptions. Kind of like, oh, you could flesh out the middle of the funnel with vibe. I'm like, oh yeah, vibe's a better bet. It's like, oh, we could talk about niching or we could vibe. It's like, yeah, vibe's a better bet. And it's like, whatever. What I'm saying is, I think there's something cool about self-discovery, and also like OI. Alright, so the question is, what do we do when we're not solving a problem? Which we can explore right now.
What do we do when we're not solving a problem?
Exactly, fantastic. I love how confusing that seems to you.
You can rest, and if you don't feel like resting, you can enjoy.
Okay,
And then you can go back to resting later.
so how can we enjoy right now? This is crazy.
It's really nuts. We could have more yogurt.
We could have more yogurt. Oh shit, I totally forgot I asked this.
Whoa.
Mammals in abundance.
Whoa!
I could have my friend hand me a chopped cheese from the deli.
Such a good metaphor. It could be like, how do we enjoy right now? And then your friend walks in and hands you a chopped cheese that you forgot you ordered.
Dude, Mammals in abundance.
Oh my god.
This is $9.
A $4 ginger and turmeric shot that I did not order.
Money is
But
made
God,
up.
anyway.
Money's made up, Rose.
You didn't even pay for that.
I didn't even pay for
You
this.
didn't even ask for that. And the universe was just like, yo, these guys want to enjoy.
I'll hook them up, bro.
Harley is Daddy Universe.
Thank you, Daddy Universe.
It's worked out so well. Did you hear what we were talking about, Harley?
A little bit. Not a lot.
Harley, this is
Wow.
this is crazy.
That kicks like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, not one.
That cough is gone. Oh, I can't open this.
Red alert, here, mammals in scarcity.
Mammals in scarcity.
We have sandwiches that we cannot eat.
Alright. Yeah, it's funny, like, I just have such a strong strategy that's in part of my face, which is like, Harley handed me this chopped cheese, and it's like, alright, how am I gonna enjoy this chopped cheese? How am I not gonna enjoy this chopped cheese? Ayo. Man, anti-remembered no tomato.
What a hero.
What a beautiful world we live in. Get a plate.
Only the best for my friends.
Dude, you bought more milk, dude. I have infinite milk.
Oh yeah. My bad. I'm done.
Honestly, still drink my milk if you want, cause wait, if this stopped the photo booth, I'll lose it. That better not have frozen. Yeah, that goes off every 20 minutes.
Everyone was witnessed by enjoyment.
Everyone must witness the enjoyment. See, that's the thing. It's like the vibes. Or just like eating hamburgers with your friends at the cookout, you know? Like that's the goal. It's like how many podcasts do you listen to where it's just people eating hamburgers with their friends? You know what I'm saying?
Do you guys mind if I'm not putting my own thing up here?
No, it's good.
Go for it.
Oh, it's got cayenne in it. That's right.
This is the greatest podcast of all time.
What else needs to be said?
Nothing. Simple. Simple.
Simple human pleasure.
Simple, non-addictive,
Not too intense.
not too intense,
Human pleasure.
human pleasure. Well, I think he says wholesome, right?
Awesome. Yeah, you're right.
Where are your TikToks of that, huh? I'm so excited. If this gets corrupted, that'll be okay and I'll figure it out.
I like watching the like gears spin and then like a different thing come out.
Wow. Okay, I'll finish this half and then we can go to you. Problems are an epiphenomena. There, I said it.
It had to be said.
Dude, I've already talked to you about the book. There's no antimimetics division.
Doesn't ring a bell.
It's so good. It's the first fiction book I've read in like a year. And like I've read like 160 pages in 2.5 days. Which I never do.
Sounds extremely niche.
It's so good. Yeah, it is. Anti-memes are cool though. Which is like ideas that by your nature you forget. So like, I would say that my trauma is anti-mimetic. Because right, like think about especially dissociation. Like if you think about a certain thing, you're likely to get tired. And like, you know, when you, like, I mean, think about when you ask people questions in coaching calls and they subconsciously avoid answering the question and like try to distract you.
Yeah.
Subconsciously. Like it's so anti-mimetic. It's like, even if someone asks you a question about it, you won't look at it because you've habitually been not looking at it your whole life. So it's like, then you have like, it's not black holes, but then you have like antimatter in your brain, which is like, oh, here's 1% of your brain, and everything around that 1% of your brain is a barrier around it, reminding you to not look at it. And it's like, oh, if you start to look at it, get tired. If you start to look at it, start dissociating. If you start to look at it, go into your head and get distracted. And it's like, whoa. You just have like anti-mimetic or like antimatter in your brain that you can't use because the whole surface area of it says avoid it. Crazy. Crazy. And then also like, for example, like problems aren't epiphenomena, or like just focus on the positive part is sort of anti-mimetic, like less strongly but a little bit, which is like kind of the deep truth we just entered into was like there's only a problem if you look for, like the main problem is looking for problems, and like you can just not focus on problems. But it's like that's so simple that it sounds stupid. It's kind of like the deepest truths of life are cliche, which makes them anti-mimetic. Because it's so easy to interpret them in a shallow way that has you reject them, that it actually makes it harder to put them in a deep way. And like when you get all into your problems and make them all complicated and intense, that makes them like much more mimetically fit. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Meh. Go.
Speak.
Speak.
Yeah, the thing that you said, I'm interested in like, I think it's like kind of applicable to my situation, but I think I'm like managing pretty hard right now. Because I actively have no money. So, I don't know. I guess it feels like appropriate to manage, but there is like an enjoyment lens, which I think would be interesting to talk about. Where it's like, there's like short-term goal, short-term goal of financial stability. And so like I just like do whatever I have to do to like get that. And then like beyond that, it's like, well, what do you want like a stable? What do you want like a stable, joyful business to look like? Um, and yeah, I think the answer is like sort of what you were saying, where it's like I don't exactly know, but I don't feel like I need to know. Like it's just like me vibing, and then like it's gonna figure itself out, which I like. But then like the management piece is like, okay, well, there's no timeline for that, like by definition, right? Like you can't know. And technically, it's possible that like you actually never get like a financially sustainable thing out of that. That seems unlikely, but I guess it's technically possible. So then I was like, oh well, maybe maybe there needs to be something to like bridge the gap. So like right now it's just like any job will do. And then beyond that, you know, if I wanted like a more sustainable freelance business, I was thinking about doing like e-commerce work, because that's like it's like a known thing, and there are like communities for it, and there's like defined places where you would go to like find clients. So like that is like really nice. And so part of me was like, oh well, maybe you should like focus on doing that. And then I was like, yeah, but like I don't actually want to do that. So like, no, I shouldn't do that. And then it was like, yeah, but like it's not like black or white, right? Like there are sort of like within the sphere of e-commerce, there are really misaligned opportunities, and there are probably also pretty strongly aligned opportunities. And so the whole thing is like, yeah, so like you get yourself in that game, and it's like, okay, like at first it's like pragmatism is key. So it's like, okay, like maybe any job will do it first, but the whole thing is you're trying to bend the arc of that towards the things that are most aligned. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Can I interrupt you?
The last thing I'll say is like, so I'm probably going to do that.
Alright, interesting.
I think the way it's related to what you were saying, and also like I was thinking about this last night too, like because the stuff you were telling me about the mastermind, like I was like that makes sense to me, and I'm also aware that I'm probably making like 40,000 assumptions about like the constraints and stuff. So like within my set of assumptions, that seems like a decent plan, and there's like lots more details that I didn't give. That's kind of like the high level thing.
Yeah. One thing is I'm happy to point out assumptions if you find that useful. Or
that was gonna be my like default suggestion for like how to frame my part. Was
cool.
Like, yeah, like I basically just like talk about my plan, and then you you know, bring up assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. I think that's pretty fire. And so my question was kind of one of those. So first thing is, do you want one assumption at a time, or I can just say all the assumptions I've heard so far?
No, I think one at a time.
Cool. So the first one that stands out to me is, you're assuming e-commerce is more fertile ground than whatever you'd call your previous niche for the stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think so. I'm like assumption plus like question that flies in the face of the assumption. And so the question would be, how does the niche you were already working in, how does it have many, if not all, of the same qualities that you mentioned liking about e-commerce?
Yeah, I mean, I can give like more detail on that because I think that's interesting to explore. That was basically like the tension was like, because another assumption that I'm making that I am aware of is like I'm assuming that I can only do one or two things at once. So like there's always going to be like the work that I'm billing. That's obviously a necessity. And then I'm
The
assuming
work that you're billing.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
so there's the project that I'm actively
Got it.
getting income from.
So you'll always be working on one active project.
Yeah.
Also an assumption.
Also an assumption. Yeah. So I'm assuming that, and then I'm also assuming on top of that I only have enough bandwidth, like enough energy, to work on like I have a couple hours outside of that to work on stuff that isn't like paid work. So if I want to sort of like shift the direction of my business or expand it or like change it in some way, like that's the time that I have to do it, and I really can only afford to dedicate that to one thing at a time. So that feels like it has historically been true, just based on like the amount of energy I have available. I also think that like there are things that could change that would like completely blow that up, where it would like no longer be true. But that is like that feels consistent with like how my energy levels have been historically. So like one obvious solution was like you could just try both and like see which one takes off. And it's like I don't really feel like I can do that because I don't have enough energy to do both at the same time. So that's why I'm framing it as like a choice too. The thing that sort of like the thing that I would like to be doing, I think the reason I'm assuming that I couldn't do that is because like I don't even exactly know what it is. It's sort of like a vibe right now, and I'm just trying to like I'm trying to explore whether it corresponds to like paid work. I feel like it should, but it's something I have to explore more, I think. But the vibe is basically like most like digital experiences that people have, so like websites and like web applications in particular, feel like pretty dead to me and like pretty corporate. And I think there's like a whole subculture of people that like are interested in there's like a practical necessity to have some sort of digital experience, but you want to do it differently, right? You don't want to have it feel the same way that like a lot of the things that we're most used to using on a regular basis feel.
Are you saying there like e-commerce feels more scrappy and entrepreneurial and more personal and individual?
So I think so like the vibe is like all of those qualities, regardless of the vertical. And so I'm saying that the thought I had last night was, okay, so like e-commerce, like you can totally apply that to e-commerce, right? Like I could work for like a really large company and it would be very like sterile.
Yeah.
Or I could work with like an individual or like a small business that actually does kind of like embody all those qualities, and that is what makes the difference, not the choice of vertical.
What does vertical mean?
Vertical is just like the like niche basically. So there's like e-commerce, or there could be like just a bunch of different things, right? So yeah, I don't think they're totally distinct, but I guess like the ideal would be like I just vibe and then I get to like work on stuff with my friends where they support me, or maybe not like my friends, but maybe like my friends have friends or whatever, right? Like I think those like higher trust projects feel better to me. I think they feel better for everyone. But I think the thing that's difficult about it right now is that there's no timeline. You can't have a concrete timeline for that, but my financial situation is on a concrete timeline.
You can't have a concrete timeline for
vibing and then having that translate into like consistent financial support.
Can I point out another assumption? So the assumption is that your financials are on a concrete timeline.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And the question, give me a second. in what sense is money not real?
In what sense is money not real? Yeah. Yeah, I guess one way of looking at that is like I'm assuming that I have to pay money to get my basic needs met.
Mm.
And like technically I do have expenses outside of that, but like obviously the most important ones are just like room and board
Mhm.
and like food and stuff. So it's like yeah, I'm assuming that like I'm gonna spend like a certain amount of money on those, which is not necessarily true. But the thing that comes to mind about that is like I have to be careful about like the environment that I'm in.
Mhm.
So it's like I can't just pick like any environment because then it's like it can become very stressful and then it's not worth the money that I'm saving or whatever. But yeah, I mean like in principle it is possible. So yeah, my assumptions about the timeline are malleable at the least. Yeah.
Mm.
But like I don't have like concrete ideas about like what that would look like.
About what would look like?
How I would change the financial timeline, basically. The only thing that comes to mind immediately, which I think is kind of a good example. I don't know. Did you see that Sam Rosen is offering his loft for $1,000 a month?
No.
Yeah, he's like, if anyone wants to sleep in my room with me for
Oh.
$1,000 a month, like that's an open offer.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, that's obviously the cheapest rent I'm gonna get, like in this building, right? So then part of me was like, I was like thinking about it. I'm just like very on the fence about it for basically the things that I said, right? So like in terms of like,
Also, just saying, 1G has a $1,000 room. That's way better than Sam Rosen's loft.
yeah, but is it open?
I don't know. Probably not, but you could ask.
Yeah, so like the pro is like, okay, you're kind of like bending the spoon of like whatever your financial timeline was, right? Because now it's like you just cut your rent by like 50% or more. But then the con is like sharing a room with another person might not be worth the stress. And so yeah, it's like that's a good example. It's like, is that worth it? It's kind of hard for me to tell, but yeah, I agree that things like that are worth thinking about.
Mm. How do you end up deciding on things like this?
On things like what specifically?
Where to live, how to make trade-offs about where to live and money.
I guess my philosophy is like I give myself as much information as possible, and then I let my intuition form opinions. So like,
And that's your philosophy, but like, and maybe the same thing happens, but what tends to happen?
so like in terms of like where to live and like, what was the second part? Where to live and like making decisions about money.
Yeah, where to live and how much to spend on where to live.
How much to spend on where to live? Oh yeah, like.
Thanks.
I would just like do some research and like the failure mode in the past is like I would do way too much research and it was ignore that and you keep eating, it's like, okay, now I feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of like that, where it's like, okay, you take in a certain amount of information, and then you start to get a signal that's like, okay, you have enough information now. And then I stop and I do something else and I sleep, and then I just kind of wait.
Cool.
And then, yeah, I don't know. It's always happened that like sometimes it doesn't always happen on the timeline that I want, which is kind of to my point from earlier. But like it's pretty much always the case that like eventually I'll just wake up and I'll be like, oh, this.
And so what I hear there is that you don't control the timeline for deciding
Unless I have to.
unless you have to.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess like how much do you want to? How much do you want to control the timeline for deciding where to live this time?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more time, but I only have that room in 4D until the 26th,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that I don't have anything. So, I guess that's what I'm saying. It kind of feels like that is forcing my hand, because I would just prefer to keep the stability of being in the same place going. And if I don't have something by then I would be forced to like, I guess, go home would be the default.
Mm-hmm. From what you're saying and my experience, you don't decide when to make a decision about where to live next. Like you don't have control over that. Because like what I'm hearing is like, how do I decide and when should I decide? And I'm like, sounds like you're not in control. It sounds like you can like barely affect it. And it sounds like at some point in the next, what's the date? At some point in the next 2 weeks, you're gonna wake up and be like, oh, this. And
Yeah. But then like that's a function of the amount of like information. So that's kind of like where I get stuck, right? It's like, so part of me is like, well, you should be putting effort into like gathering more options, because there could be better options that you just don't know about because you haven't, gone through the effort to find them. And that's like a slippery slope, because like I think it is partially true, but then like it always could be true, and it sort of leads to like obsessively looking for more options if you're dissatisfied, which is not really like a good use of time. So yeah, I think I guess I don't control the decision, but I do control the knowing enough to make a good decision.
And like this time around, what else do you need? What else do you want to know to make a good decision, if anything?
I guess in a perfect world, I would like to know if there are any rooms in Fractal that are still open for May. And then like which ones, and then I can decide like based on that. Because if it was like, okay, well, all of the rooms in all of the Fractal units are already taken for May, then I have enough information. Then it's just like, do I want Sam Rose's talk or not?
Sorry. Do you have more?
But then like if it was like, oh, like that like 1G room is actually open for May, and you just didn't know that because you haven't been to 1G, then it would be like, oh, well, you should go. Or I guess in this situation, I hypothetically like somehow get that information, and I'm like, oh, I should say that I want that room. Like that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I see the assumption that you have control over getting the information.
My question would be like, what's stopping you from doing all of those things you just said? Like, what's stopping you from getting the information?
Yeah, I guess nothing. Yeah. Yeah, I guess the only thing that's stopping me is like part of me doesn't want to think about it. So I think that's why I was like, I sort of had a moment where I was like, why haven't I done that yet? It's like, oh yeah, I kind of don't want to know. So that is what it is. But yeah, I could do that. I could do that.
But you could do it, but what makes you not want to know?
It feels different now that I've acknowledged it, but I fear that there actually aren't any rooms left, and it feels like it's kind of like that would be destabilizing if there weren't any rooms left. And it's sort of easier to pretend that there's still a possibility of stability than just kind of like to squarely face the fact that okay, like this is not going to stabilize in the way that I want.
Yeah. What I see there is if I exert the control I do have, I might see how little control I ultimately have.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way with jobs too, because it's like, okay, like I can apply for jobs, and then it's like you just have to wait for them to get back to you. It's like, oh, like what do I do now?
Yeah.
So it's almost easier not to apply.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, now I just have to wait. It feels
Yeah.
horrible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine like two, like a small circle and a big circle, and I don't know, whatever. There's a small circle and a big circle, and you like have control in the small circle, but when you exert control in the small circle, it like melts into the bigger circle, and then you realize you're in the bigger circle, which is like, when the fuck is this dude gonna email me back for my job application? And maybe never. And you have to like feel the size of the big circle, which is like way scarier, more overwhelming.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, I hate that I'm in this big circle. I want to pretend I'm in the small circle. Or I want to feel like I'm in the small circle.
And I don't think that's completely like pretending that the small circle exists. I think is sometimes a useful belief.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes it really is. It's really important to focus on like what you can do, than focus on what you can't do. But yeah, sometimes it's just you're just limiting yourself.
Yeah. I also just notice you saying should a lot, and especially there's an interesting one which is like wants and shoulds close to each other, which is like, oh, I don't know if you said exactly this, but something like, oh, I want to find out if there's a room in Fractal, so I guess I should just do that. Which is like, wait, you just said you want to do that. You don't need the should. Like, you're about to. What I feel there is like, oh, you're about to do it intrinsically, and then you turn it into a should.
Yeah, what is it's like I want a room at Fractal, so I want to find out if there still is a room at Fractal. And then at that point it's like, oh wait, no, I don't want that because I don't want to look at like how little control I have over the situation. So
Okay,
then it's
cool.
like Yeah, like something weird happens where like you follow the chain of wanting and then you like hit a landmine, which is like, oh wait, there's a opposite
Nice.
in there.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It's what I'm hearing is, oh, I want to do that, and it's like, oh, wait, there's the part of me that doesn't want to do that, and it's like, no, I should just do it.
Right. Yeah. It's like the part of me that like I think that's a good point. It's like the part of me that doesn't want to do that is not welcome.
Yeah.
Because there's
So,
also
yeah.
like a because I think like hanging over all of that is like I need somewhere to stay.
Yeah.
So there is like the whole thing is like it's actually like within this coercive container, and it's like, well, if my wants are aligned with the need,
Yeah.
then I can pretend like there's no coercion. But then as
Nice,
soon as like I
nice.
run into resistance, it's like, no, I just have to like,
Nice.
yeah.
I feel like that just reminds me of the circle thing as well. It's like, look, it's non-coercive, and it's like, wait, if you fuck up this circle, though, it is.
Yeah, it's just like conditional love. It's
Yeah.
like, I love you in this circle. Don't mess with
Don't
the
fuck
circle.
up the circle.
Don't fuck up the circle. Yeah.
I don't want to feel the big circle.
Yeah. You make me feel the big circle, I will blame you for my feelings. Yeah. Which I think that is like my perspective on that is like that's a bandwidth thing. It's like you could just be like, I'm just like swimming around in the big circle and like it's gonna work out. But like if you have low bandwidth, there's actually a lot of situations where like you just end up like stressed and over threshold and you're like, ooh, I actually do have to manage this situation, otherwise it might not work out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's like another maybe like assumption for that.
Yeah. That's interesting. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean like there's a ton more we could talk about there, but I
Or,
don't
like,
necessarily.
I guess it's how complete does this feel? And what
That
else do I
that
do?
arc of that. I mean, we have been going for an hour. That arc of that feels complete to me. I mean, it doesn't feel complete in the sense that like I still have that conflict.
Yeah.
But it helps to be able to kind of see what I'm working with.
Yeah.
So that part feels complete.
So anything else right now?
Um, I guess not. No.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Beast.
Thank you so much.
Anything else for the fans at home?
Thank you, veteran.
Wow. Beautiful. Pass it forward.